Hello, and welcome back to Trying to Figure It Out. I'm Allie, and here on Trying to Figure It Out, I really care about raising awareness and providing information for issues that may be overlooked frequently in society. Women's health specifically is something I like to talk about on this podcast. I feel like it's very much brushed aside, and there's so much to talk about that falls under this subject. So this week, we are going to be talking about pregnancy with Dr. Arias, who has her doctorate in clinical psychology. Welcome to Trying to Figure It Out, Jennifer.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. Dr. Arias works with women before, during, and after pregnancy. She's also a generalist. She specializes in all forms of talk therapy. I personally don't have kids, but pregnancy definitely seems like a very good time to start seeking therapy. A woman's identity completely changes when she becomes a mother. She's taking on this whole new role, and she's now responsible for another human being. What do you think can make it so hard to see yourself as a mother?
Yeah, that's a great question. Every woman is so different, right? And who they want to be and how they want to mother is going to be so different too.
Right.
And so depending on, well, one thing is, what was your own mother like? That's a big one. And what are you looking for,
right,
in being a mother? Especially the pressure that women feel. You know, if you're not a mother, you're not a woman.
Yeah.
And so being able to pull those things apart to understand, you know, what does it mean for me to be a mother? Right. With my culture, with my gender identity, faith background, you know, specific family history in mind, and understanding, you know, what you hope that actually looks like in a family.
Right. No, absolutely. It's funny because I feel like I always say, you know, I know how I want to parent based on how I was parented. Like, I know what I won't do and what I would never do and what didn't work for me. And I know what, you know, certain things I did like and I would want to continue or would want to do when I am a mom. But do you think, as a therapist, do you think that that's enough awareness, or do you think that there needs to be more thought behind like all those things? Because I feel like I say that, but then when it's I just don't know. Like, you don't know until you experience it.
Well, I always tell clients, you know, you can know here, but that doesn't mean you know here.
Yeah.
And so awareness is so important in our journey, but there's another way that we experience things, and it's in your body.
Yeah.
So you can know, my baby's crying and they're really upset and I can't soothe them. I know that I'm doing everything, and you know that you're a human being and that babies cry, but the feeling that might come up is, I'm a terrible mother.
Yeah.
Even my baby doesn't like me.
Yeah.
Right. And that feeling is actually from before, right? It's from these other experiences of not feeling good enough, of having tricky relationships with parents, caregivers, mothers, right? And you can have the most wonderful mother and say, gosh, I want to be just like her.
Yeah.
And then the insecurity inside of you might say, well, you're never going to be as good as she was.
Yeah.
And so it's just being able to be honest about those feelings
truly
as they come up and working through them. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Outside of a therapy session with you, what do you encourage your clients to think about or work on? Do you assign homework? Like, what is your specific style?
Yeah. So I believe that everyone learns in a different way, and everyone grows in a different way. Some people ask me for homework. I don't give homework. Very rarely do I. It depends on the client, right? For clients who are already very hard on themselves, especially like a new mom, I probably am not going to give her more things to do. I might do the opposite. I might say, you know what would it look like to plan a time where you don't do anything? You're not responsible for anyone.
Right.
And you just can sit and check in and think about, what do I want to do right now?
Right.
And maybe that is something that is to think about her psychological health. Maybe it's just, you know, getting a massage.
Yeah. A lot of people's identity is tied to how their body looks and how it moves. Of course, all of that definitely changes when you become pregnant and give birth. In your experience, what do women struggle with the most as their bodies change from pregnancy?
I think this is a very important question.
Yeah.
And I think the relationship to your body and what your body does and doesn't do, right? This idea of you are in control of your body. And if you if you're having trouble getting pregnant, or if your birthing experience is not what you wanted it to be, does that mean that your body is bad?
Yeah.
Right? If you've had a pregnancy loss, is that your body's fault? Is that your fault? Right? And so there's so much shame when things happen, these very normal difficulties that come with pregnancies and just even being human.
Right.
And so this idea of the body is bad, right? Versus like understanding that your body is human. Sometimes these things happen and that can be extremely painful literally in your body as you're going through birth and having injuries and these different, it takes sometimes up to 2 years for the body to recover fully the internal organs and the muscles after a pregnancy.
Yeah.
And so of course, there may be different feelings, especially if there have been difficulties in how you see your body and how you value your body before pregnancy.
Yeah.
Right? And is your body bad or is it resilient?
Yeah.
Is it amazing?
How can women both prepare and process the changes that their bodies experience?
It's so important to understand, right? How do I feel about my body? If you can have a, vaginal delivery, or if you require medical intervention, how does that feel, right? Those experiences can be traumatic. And if you already have trauma in your background, that can also come up, the idea of someone else like going into your body or not having control of your body. That can bring up a lot of anxiety as well as the shame and all the other things of you need to look a certain way and you need to feel wonderful and just glowing during pregnancy. You may feel miserable, right? Morning sickness, not being able to sleep, your body parts changing, your organs shifting, right? Exactly. And, as beautiful as it is to be able to be in this, life stage and to be having a baby, it's just like anything else in life. The journey is not always, the point, right? It's like the goal is not to be miserable and be uncomfortable in your body. What women want is to have, a family, right? That's the goal, is the baby. But there is this price, this cost that is being given both in time and literally your body is creating this life. And it changes your diet, it changes all your routines, right? And so the more honest you can be about what you're hoping for. Some people hope that everything is just going to be smooth and it's just kind of like life is going to continue on. But life doesn't always go as expected. I'd say most of the time it does not.
I agree with that.
And so the more flexible you can be to have, there's a concept in DBT I really like called radical acceptance. And so much of our energy goes into fighting against what is, right? Like, oh my gosh, this morning sickness is lasting for so long. Or, oh, I hoped that the belly would look like this, or I would gain this much weight or this much weight. And there's so much, and that's normal to have feelings about what's happening, right? But to then go into criticism or try to change it or kind of resist and shame yourself about that will keep you in this stuck place. Right. And so sometimes just being able to take a deep breath. And just let things be as they are can really free up some space. Like, wow, okay, my feet look different. I don't like this. I don't know is this going to be forever? And just say, okay, well, it's happening right now. Right. What can I do about it? It's really nothing. And what is something that I do feel good about or feel better about? Right. And being able to practice that. And again, I don't prescribe a lot of to-dos or like homework, like you said. It's more so finding practices that help you, because your needs will change, right? Pregnancy in the first trimester, second trimester, third, when you have that new baby, right, in your arms that isn't sleeping and you're fighting with your partner and
you're tired.
You're not sure if people should come visit you or not, right? It always comes back down to being able to check in with yourself. And listen.
So we've talked a lot about expectations in pregnancy, and social media right now TikTok is filled with moms, and it almost makes it look glamorous in a way that, you know, makes you more excited to be a parent, and like it really does encourage you to want that life. But I also do think that it can reiterate a lot of expectations that are a little bit unrealistic. I think, you know, even though these people are being vulnerable at the end of the day and they're sharing their world of motherhood or parenting, whatever that looks like for them, I think there's like such beauty in that. But I also think that, you know, it can really impact how other people experience it. And, you know, maybe it's not that glamorous for you. Maybe you're not enjoying it that much. How do you help people who are seeing pregnancy one way for other people and not understanding why it's not like that for them?
That's a great question. I do think there are wonderful accounts actually, and that are
I
very
love them.
honest. Yeah,
I love them.
Yes, and I think women are learning to talk honestly about what the experience is like, about the fears, about just the stretching that happens, not even literally, but you know, there's nothing that is going to kind of test your ability to regulate yourself than like a screaming child when you're exhausted. Like that's when the real stuff comes up. Absolutely. And it's human to struggle as you grow. It's common to hear, you know, like people post the highlight reel, but it's true. People post the highlight reel. And even when people are sharing honestly and you can see they're having a hard time, you know, it's one thing to see it and it's another thing to live it.
Yeah.
And so the feelings of self-questioning and, you know, being hard on yourself, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But if you're actually sitting with that and you're getting up the next day and trying again, and you're trying to take good care of yourself and you're trying to be kind to yourself and to be a good mom to your baby, then I would say you're winning.
Right.
You're doing great.
I think the most well-known mental health struggle related to pregnancy is postpartum depression. Before we get into anything, can you explain what postpartum depression is and what the signs and symptoms are?
Yeah. So postpartum depression is a major depressive episode, but it is related to the, you know, postpartum or peripartum during pregnancy. So you can have a depressive episode that begins during pregnancy or right after it. Right. So it depends on your history. It depends on the things that you've recently gone through. And it's a little bit different than the normal kind of, you know, feelings that we would see, or not I don't want to use the word normal. I'll say then the more common experience, because everything is sort of within a spectrum. Right?
Absolutely.
Again, there are so many hormones that are going through your body. You might not be sleeping well. Your eating might be different. Your whole life is changing. So it's expected that there's going to be some internal, you know, heaviness and stress and distress and all of that, right? Often mothers that, you know, have a past history of depression or anxiety are at a higher risk, right? If they've had trauma, if they've had, you know, if their delivery is sometimes more medically complex, that can, you know, if your body's physically still healing, right? The important thing to know is that, you know, postpartum depression is more serious than the normal, just I feel sad or I'm feeling overwhelmed. Right. The baby blues is what is kind of normally talked about, and it's in the first 2 weeks after having a baby, right? You know, there's so much happening in the body, and think about if you just ran a marathon. Right. How long will it take to get back to your normal peppy self after all of that workup, right? It's normal to have kind of like a
come down.
Yeah. And so it takes time. You know, if someone, you know, comes in with the same symptoms of not having any motivation and feeling sad, and they've just been through something really intense, again, the body takes time to recalibrate, right? But if more than 2 weeks have gone by and, you know, you're still feeling really depressed mood, little enjoyment or you know, motivation to do things, and the bigger ones are, you know, things that really are getting in the way of doing the important things to you day to day. That would be when it's important to talk to your medical provider, whoever was on your birthing staff, right? Because research shows that early intervention really makes a difference, right?
Absolutely. Can you explain the difference between baby blues and postpartum depression?
Yeah. So it's normal to have some overwhelm, and, you know, there's a change that just happened. You're grieving the loss of so many things life how it was and adapting to a whole other set of circumstances.
Yeah.
And so it's normal to have some questions about that, right? What is different between baby blues and postpartum depression is that this actually is going to get in the way of your life, or it's going to be really difficult to kind of deal with on your own.
Right.
So important things to look out for is, more than two, it's not just a couple days.
Right.
And so we might not actually diagnose postpartum depression in the first 2 weeks because it's normal, but if there's more intense symptoms, like you're thinking of hurting yourself or your baby, right? That is a clear indicator that you need to talk to someone and get some more support.
How common is postpartum depression?
So the CDC's recent estimate says 1 in 8 women that have experienced a live birth, right? Imagine it's higher,
Right.
And this is also, I do want to kind of acknowledge that there's a lot of with gender identity that isn't talked about as much, with, like birthing people and becoming a caretaker and all of that. And so this is really common, actually. Depression is one of the most common experiences that people have, especially women. And so it's not unusual to experience that. And it's even more devastating sometimes because there's the idea that this is this happy, beautiful time. And so when you're anxious or having panic attacks, and then you feel you're crying so much, right? It can feel like the opposite.
How long does it typically last?
So it really varies, right? I saw some research that says, a lot of cases can resolve within 3 to 6 months with early intervention, right? But it can present up to months after having the baby, and it can also last a lot longer, right? It's a depressive episode, right? So it can kind of drag on, but it's very treatable.
Yeah.
Most women that can, get in for treatment and get support, right? There may be a medication that is helpful if they need it, but for a lot of women, just talk therapy or even just getting support, right, from their physician and the people in their lives can just make a huge difference.
Yeah. I want to talk about how pregnancy can directly impact couples. In your experience, why do expecting couples seek therapy?
So when a baby comes into a couple, right, it can change so much of the dynamic, right? And the lover goes from being a lover to a mother, right? And now you're put in these roles from your romantic, maybe erotic connection to your parents.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a lot about that that's not glamorous.
Yeah.
There's diapers. You're talking about poop.
Yeah.
Right? And these conversations change, from how you would normally connect to this person and to your partner, right? And how, your physical connection is going to be impacted, right? The time you have together is impacted. And now you have this whole other role of raising a person.
Yeah.
And that's going to bring up all of your family stuff that wasn't resolved. How you want to be like your mom or not your dad, or right? And then you're fighting about these deeper hurts of what happened to you as a kid and how you don't want that to happen to your kid, but your partner doesn't get it and they're doing that, or they're not doing enough of that.
What do you do specifically to help couples get through these kinds of challenges?
The best thing I could recommend, both when couples that are hoping to get pregnant or have a baby, and even once you've had a little one, is conversations. Right? It's hard to actually, be able to sit and say, I feel like this is what happened in my family, or this feels familiar. This is like what happened in my partner's family.
Yeah.
And we're doing the same things and we're fighting all the time. And to be able to call a timeout and to take deep breaths. I do that a lot with my couples, and I have them look at each other and they're just like, I'm like, this person is someone you love.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
But to be able to slow down and look at this person that you've, have all these experiences and love for, and to look at them now in this very human and difficult experience of being a parent, and to empathize with the fact that they don't have it figured out either.
Yeah.
And parenting is really an art of trial and error.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the more that the couple can actually talk about their expectations of, okay, this is what I'm trying to do and this is what I expect of you, and actually talking about that versus getting upset when they don't do it. And for partners that have a lot of anxiety or can be a bit, I don't want to use the word controlling, but that really find safety in having a certain order, to be able to talk about what is actually going on for them in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any specific tools that couples can use to get through, newly having a baby?
Yeah. Well, I always recommend couples look into what the stages of development are for babies, right? A newborn is completely different than a 4-month-old, a 12-month-old, and then 2 years old. And in psychology, we know that there are certain milestones that little ones need to reach, and it's actually very helpful to get, if there's anything that might not be as expected, to get support for your baby, right? But also for you as parents, there's a lot of anxiety that happens with, is my baby eating enough? Right. Are they talking when they should? How many words should they have? And it's actually very normal as their, cognitive development is happening. At around 4 months, babies sometimes start being able to pick up more on what's happening around them. Right. And so then they're distracted when it's mealtime, and then they might not eat as well. And then parents will have all of this anxiety, but it's so actually normal.
It's so interesting.
And so again, our brains have a way of filling in what we don't know. And so when there's a regression in sleep or eating, it may be actually as expected, right? And so the Brazelton touch points I found are very helpful in providing some of that information and some of the conflicts that might happen around eating. And then the goal is for your baby to keep growing and be independent.
Right.
And that also means that you have less control. Yeah. So that brings up a lot. And so for parents to be aware of what's happening and how to help their little ones in this process, and themselves, to not put themselves on the hook for a normal process of, a little brain developing in a person growing up.
That's so interesting. Well, there's a lot to think about here, and so much that I've learned. I know you said to me earlier tonight before we started taping that you, as a therapist, don't necessarily give advice. It's not about giving advice, but I think that, for everyone here listening who maybe therapy isn't something they're ready for or can't afford or whatever their circumstances are, I hope that everyone listening was at least able to get some advice and some pointers on how to navigate all these changes and challenges of life, because they're very real, and we all experience it in different ways. So I hope to everyone listening that you've gotten something out of this, and I definitely have, so thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you to everyone listening, and we will see you next week with another exciting episode. I love you all, and thanks for listening to Trying to Figure It Out.